KindaSound Radio. We're tuning in the change.
Happy Friday and welcome to the KindaSound astrology update for the 16th of February to the 22nd with me, Stella Grace. I'm here every Friday at 10. The show's replayed on Saturday at 10 and soon after made available as a podcast to catch up on all your astrology info and updates each week. Today is a special day. We've also got the gifts within adversity at 11. So stay around after the show to hear from my lovely guest, Jerry Roberts, and her incredible journey completing an ice mile swim, age 73, which was record breaking with the Guinness World Records. And largely, we are going to talk about the mindset and resilience she required behind this to do such an amazing achievement. And, the beautiful energy that she has is a huge part of that as well. So I hope you'll join us for that at 11 today. All shows are replayed on KindaSound the next day at the same time. So you'll be able to catch up on that, and also available as podcasts from Apple, Audible, Spotify, and of course you can access those via the KindaSound.org website. So let's get into the update. Today, the 16th of February, we've got Venus entering Aquarius, and it's also conjunct Pluto. So this is an intense collective energy for our relationships with others and with ourselves, of course, and all being in Aquarius, meaning that we have the potential for more detachment and more unconventionality in our relationships. So Pluto can bring an intensity because that energy is largely about death and rebirth cycles that are resulting in our transformation in some way. So our relationships may be transforming in some way, ultimately for renewal or rebirth, because those are big Pluto themes. And so the dance between Venus and Pluto that we have there is, that some relationships may end entirely if they are, to put it directly, if they are too decayed, if they're up for renewal, or they may be transformed into something completely new. And this is where Aquarian energy comes in again to play, to think about in terms of, all about the innovation and into the new. So Aquarius is the sign that Pluto and Venus are in. Venus for the next 3 weeks or so. Obviously, we've touched on Pluto in previous weeks that's there for the next 20 years or so. But with this Venus energy, we've got this, the Venus and Pluto energy together at the moment, we've got this real strong, passionate energy. This can be an amazing time also for sexual connection within relationships, but on a really deep level, a really transformative, really connected, very deep level. And so we've got these intense depths of Pluto with the harmonious and romantic, pleasurable aspects of Venus. Venus is then conjunct with Mars on the 21st. So in just a few days, we have this formation of actually a triple conjunction. And with it, even more sexy energy, even more passionate energy, as the planetary archetypes of the lovers, Mars and Venus, conjoin. So when they conjoin in the skies, we've got also this much favourable opportunity. It's not just romantic, actually. It's worth really highlighting that it's harmony in all our connections, even the feminine and masculine aspects within ourselves. Obviously, the most important, because when that is in balance and in alignment, all of our outer relationships are all in more balance and alignment too, as a reflection. So it's a really great energy for combining the receptive openness and warmth of the feminine with the dynamic action and doing energy of the male. And it's a really great dance, actually, this energy. In this mix, we may find all of our collaborations, all of our working relationships, even all of our personal projects, all benefit from this kind of union of these two energies. All senses of teamwork are favourable. And on that note, we're going to have our song, our first song this morning. And we're going to have some reef and good feeling for a Friday, because also in the message of this song, things work out when it's in flow. So I think it's a great time to bring in reef and good feeling. Enjoy.
KindaSound Radio, the station for a global community.
Welcome back to the KindaSound Astrology Update with me, Stella Grace. And we're looking at the current energies and the current planetary influences and aspects in the skies this week and beyond. The following few weeks, we've been talking about Mars and Venus conjoining in the skies at the moment in Aquarius, and Pluto there as well. And so this intense energy, but this also opportunity to dance as a balance between the masculine and the feminine. And the following few weeks until March the 11th, whilst Venus is still in Aquarius, we also have a more generally independent feel, or the emphasis in our relationship that is more unconventional. It could be that aspects in our relationships are very much more defined on our own terms with others, with encompassing our senses of freedom within them. And this freedom really being a non-negotiable for many of us. However, those freedom needs look like for each of us personally and individually. And it's up to us to voice those in our connections to ourselves and to others, because when we do so in again, in a harmonious way, we're able to unlock and strengthen a deeper way of relating by really accessing and sharing honestly the freedom needs that we have. And Venus in Aquarius really supports us to do so. It also lends a hand in doing so harmoniously, because Venus energy is a softer energy, and it lends a hand in doing that in the ways that we can, really connect with others and with ourselves, as I say, is hugely important. Venus in Aquarius energy is also hugely conducive to friendship within our relationships, as well as, again, being as simple as being our own best friends. And this is something I touch on now and again, because I find it something that's so incredibly important for how we move forward in life. We've got to look after and acknowledge and treat ourselves as the most precious person on earth, as the same as we would do our children and our loved ones, because when we do that, that spills over into others and into all of our other relationships, as an organic product of that. So Venus in Aquarius is going to support us with that as well. It's, as an essential being for our own well-being. We've also can see with this energy, friendships within romantic connections can be highlighted. And this is a really beautiful theme of Venus in Aquarius, and a really beautiful thing to have, actually, if you're in a friendship with your loved ones, as well as, all of the different ways you relate. It's a really stunning energy to have and to share. And Venus in Aquarius can strengthen that for us. Venus in Aquarius is also quite an interesting energy, and it can also support casual dating, because again, it's that kind of more casual, you may want to do something fun like a hobby together or a date. It's those kind of areas that are also supported in this kind of arena of this energy. Today, the 16th, we now have Chiron and the North Node exactly in conjunction. So I touched on this energy building last week, and it's now at its exact peak today. And so what this means is we, as we touched on before, we may be presented with something related to our deepest wounds or triggers. And the purpose of this is not to torment us. It's to somehow perhaps initiate or highlight a new trajectory for our path of purpose. And this is because the North Node is also known as our true north. We're encouraged to face our true north, to follow, we hear about it, what's for our highest destiny, for our highest good. And the North Node is a point in the zodiac that's kind of supportive of that. This is not North Node energy is not about what we already know, what we're already comfortable with. It's not a comfort zone. It's pushing you out of your comfort zone and onto a new trajectory that is higher for your potential. And so the purpose of Chiron, triggering our wounds and being conjunct with the North Node point at this time is to give us some, deeper understanding of, a vision and an understanding in the areas associated with our true north, the destiny line. So this transit may also help by triggering something that can serve us some alchemy, because that's real Chiron energy, is alchemizing old wounds, old hurts, old triggers that serve us something for our growth, for our new path of purpose forward from it. And of course, as I say, for our highest potential. So a really good tool to utilize here would be objectively imagining what a therapist, because again, that's Chiron energy. It's the therapist of the zodiac, the shaman, the alchemist. So a really good way of navigating this conjunction would be objectively imagining what a therapist or a best friend or a coach might say to you if you're presented with something challenging. And this again goes back to that Venus in Aquarius energy, where we're able to detach a little to see things more objectively and how they might actually be supporting us in a way that we hadn't considered before. And again, to support our harmony and to support how we're moving forwards or being gifted in something in some way to move forwards. Around these few days, we also have Mercury squaring Uranus. So Mercury being our thinking, our ideas, our communications, they may have some challenge requiring action because it's the square aspect. And so in the area of challenge, we might be called to see something out of the blue because it's Uranus. Uranus is quick moving. It's brings flashes of insight, but it can be very quick and it can feel a little chaotic or disruptive in the short term. But again, the purpose of the square is to teach us something. So we have a real opportunity. If something is presented out of the blue, it's a good time to ground in, stay grounded, deepen in our, grounded, solid practice, particularly as it's in combination with all of the mental air energy of Aquarius. So feet in the earth physically, literally feet in the earth grounding, or whatever your sense of grounding practices are, will support this energy. Uranus can bring those incredible flashes of insight and intuition. So again, if that is happening, your intuition might be needing to, or trying to get your attention to initiate some kind of change in some way. Because although, as we said, Uranus can feel a little disruptive, it's ultimately a liberator. Uranus brings change, which although can feel that initial challenge of being out of the blue, it's also helpful for the longer term. And always with Uranus changes, we look back over time with hindsight and think, yes, that needed to happen in some way. So it might be helpful to really ground down new insights onto paper. It'd be a great time for journaling, to make our flashes of insight, our intuition, our ideas more tangible. A journaling practice would be a great way of utilizing this energy if it's not something you're already doing. On the 18th this week, we have the sun going into Pisces, and with it, our collective life force energy, because it's the sun, is awash with the watery vibes of Pisces. So collectively, our life force is more dreamy and fluid of an energy. It's less of a doing energy. And in this sense, it's an energy that can become, it can throw up issues of feeling unboundaried, because Pisces is not always clear on where one energy ends and another begins, because it's so compassionate. And that's one of the beauties and the gifts of Pisces. But it really offers us an opportunity to be mindful about where we're absorbing others' energies as our own, and also where our boundaries lie, where we're accountable for our own energy, rather than taking that on of others or allowing ourselves to give away too much of ourselves. Now, of course, we want to be compassionate and kind, so it's a great time to utilize those beautiful gifts of Pisces, but we just want to be aware of where our boundaries lie within that. We've got all the beautiful traits of the water sign with the sun in Pisces, of the receptivity, the intuition, the psychic abilities even. And as we said, this beautiful collective compassion. Saturn, interestingly, is also currently in Pisces, and we're going to touch on Saturn as our topic today. And so Saturn, interestingly, is bringing all about boundaries to this compassionate sign. So what we can see is this real dance. It's interesting between Saturn and Pisces at the moment. So it's, as a planet, Saturn is a slow moving heavyweight, because it takes around 29 and a half years to go full cycle around the whole zodiac. So it takes 2.5 to 3 years to go through each zodiac sign. When Saturn goes through a sign or makes an aspect to another planet, we know that there will be considerable long-term influence, because it's incredibly slow moving, or it appears as very slow moving. These natures give us an indication of how the energy impacts upon us as a planet. So we have this real slowing down effect, and what can sometimes feel like a bit of a dampener with Saturn. I have experienced Saturn transits. It can feel a little bit like wading through treacle, but always Saturn will bring us some long-term learning, and it slows us down for the purpose of taking stock and looking at ourselves within, looking at our structures, looking at what's going on around us, all to add longer-term learning for us. It's the planet that rules and responsibilities and boundaries. And so when we kind of look at our Saturn and we get comfortable with it, we can really adopt the kind of responsibility and learning needed for our longer term journeys and our longer term path. So it's an interesting one. Actually, the lady, an old friend of mine, the lady that first got me into astrology in a more serious way, had a saying, and she used to say that you make friends with your Saturn. And I think that was really good advice, because, you know, as much as it can feel like a bit of a dampener, or it can feel like a slow down energy, it serves us something. It serves us learning. So since March 2023, and right the way until February 26, Saturn is going to be in Pisces. Now, it will retrograde in that time, so it won't stay solidly in Pisces. It will do that dance with the previous sign, but we have, over those few year periods, the surety that Saturn is going to teach us something in that area collectively. So in the area of Pisces, we have Saturn teaching us about faith in structures and the powers that be. And Pisces energy is almost softening, almost dissolving those structures in our systems. We can really see that if we think about how we've been led by the world leaders over, you know, how we are being led over this time. And that's something about that is changing. Our faith in those structures are changing. Now, we've also got Pluto in Aquarius, these two heavyweights in the background, Saturn and Pluto, bringing around longer term change, slowly, kind of underlyingly in the background, making these changes over time to our structures. And obviously, we've touched on Pluto in Aquarius considerably in previous podcasts. So if you want to hear more about that, you can go back to KindaSound.org and look through the podcast there. And we talk a lot about Pluto being a big change maker as well, radically transforming structures. And similarly, you know, Saturn works with structures, but with Pisces energy, it's kind of got this real dissolving aspect to it at the moment. And with that, we have this process of reevaluation of faith. We have an understanding. Pisces really supports us with understanding a deepening of faith within ourselves. And so that also is, an interesting mirror image when we look at the structures and the faith within things outside of ourselves. Saturn in Pisces organically brings some mysticism to the collective as well, because Pisces is a water sign which is intuitive and psychic and spiritual and holistic. So we're really supported by this energy of inner faith, potentially. And whatever that faith looks like for you, it's how we embrace and initiate that faith into our daily lives is really, really individual. But what it does for us with Saturn and Pisces is it personally provides us with like a reclamation of faith in our own structures. So an amazing energy to cultivate here is daily faith practice, because Saturn really supports the discipline of sticking to it, which is so beneficial for our well-being. And it's really conducive to, again, our own structure and how that reflects outwards to others. Of course, all the work we do on ourselves ripples out energetically to our relationships, to our families, to our work life, and of course, the collective, which is, again, what Pisces is all about. So over the coming few weeks, we have Saturn and the Sun applying towards each other, because these two planets both now being in Pisces by the 18th when the Sun's there. And over the coming few weeks following that, they're applying towards each other, forming a conjunction where they will meet at the same degree in Pisces. And when they do, Saturn over the Sun definitely can slow us down collectively. It slows down our life force energy. But again, with the purpose of helping us to take stock of what's going on within and around us. It supports us with applying caution to any excess in our lives. It comes in perhaps after, it's interesting when Saturn energy comes in, it can invite us to have a good look at where we have been perhaps overspending or taking risks or, generally living in kind of some excess of some kind. So, and it can provide a real necessary downtime and learning that will be beneficial to our longer term good in some way, and provide us the discipline energy required to do so, to adopt these new teachings. Really, it's a coming back to ourselves, and it's remembering that we're all in it together, because it's Pisces energy. But of course, the work that we do on ourselves, when we take stock, when we build within our inner strength, is really beneficial and of service to ourselves and others. And on that note, I'm going to look forward to seeing you next week at 10 on KindaSound.org on the Friday, and leave you with the soothing "Come Back to What You Know" by Embrace. Much love.